I'm not in any way, as an atheist, seeking to make it illegal for you to believe and or practice your religion, except where it infringes upon the rights of others. That's it.
Hey, I'm Johnny DriveBye. Why don't you turn your dial to the atheist edge?
Zalmoxis is a god who began to be worshipped around 440 before Common Era in what is now Bulgaria and Romania. Some interesting facts about this god. He came to Earth in the form of a man and lived on the Greek island of Samos. Who does that sound like? He vanished suddenly, and the people mourned him, believing him to be dead. I know I've heard this story before. He spent 3 years in an underground chamber. Whoa, that's a long time to spend in an underground chamber, unless it's a nicely redone basement. But I've heard that 3 somewhere before. He returned to the astonishment of people to teach them his truths. Again, I do believe we're experiencing some deja vu. His followers believe that they do not really die. True believers will depart this life to go be with Zalmoxis in paradise. I gotta be honest, Zalmoxis sounds like an antibiotic that you would take. You know, you would see all those warnings on the television, this may cause anal leakage. I just had to put that out there. But again, where have we seen this story before? Have we heard that before? I believe Jesus copied this person. Just saying.
Blue laws are federal and state laws that are designed to impose Christian values onto non-Christians. The vast majority of these despotic, illegal, bullying, and totalitarian laws have been repealed, but many are still being imposed. Many states have dry counties. The sale of any alcoholic beverage is prohibited entirely. It is illegal to buy a vehicle on Sunday in many states. Several counties in Florida prohibit the sale of sex toys on Sunday. It is illegal for almost all businesses in Maine to be open on Sunday. You can go to jail in New Jersey for singing vain songs or tunes on the Sabbath. Hunting is prohibited on Sunday in several states. Until 1985, it was illegal to sell housewares such as pots, pans, or washing machines on Sunday in Texas.
What exactly is religious freedom? Well, it means you have a right to practice your own religion or none at all. It means the government cannot promote religion or give a particular religion special status over the others. It means public schools can't promote religious beliefs or practices. You can pray anywhere, anytime you want, as long as it doesn't interfere with the rights of others. You cannot use religion as an excuse to discriminate or deny goods and services to certain sections of the population. These are essentially the U.S. rules on your First Amendment rights to practice your religion. Whether or not they're the best rules, whether or not they're implemented elsewhere, is something for more discussion. But generally speaking, religious freedom is not in danger by the atheist community, by the secular community, by the election or promotion of individuals from the atheist or secular community. I'm not in any way, as an atheist, seeking to make it illegal for you to believe and or practice your religion, except where it infringes upon the rights of others. That's it. Where our rights overlap, we have to remain secular, because if we appeal to one religion at all, we are necessarily promoting one over others, or one type of religion over another, or religion over irreligion.
The punishment for adultery is death. Why is God so obsessed with who you sleep with? Some of it makes sense, like incest is problematic. But God is okay with rape, but not adultery. The Christian God has a warped sense of morality.
Faith alone is not enough for Mormons. For them, 4 elements are necessary for one's salvation: faith, repentance, baptism, and laying on of hands. Mormons believe that you must perform all these to be saved. Well, growing up, I learned that the only way to save the planet is earth, fire, wind, water, and heart. Go planet!
Fire! Wind! Water! Heart! Go planet!
I am Captain Planet!
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't learn much about Mormonism until I got into college.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is very new to me. I mean, these things all sound like they're nice, but of course it's assuming,
Yeah.
a creator.
Yeah, well, and it does show, like, differences between religions, because people kind of assume that if you believe in one, you kind of believe in them all a little bit. So I know a lot of people that believe in those kind of things, but this is a very different bill than a lot of other religions. That, like, the thing you have to do to get into heaven, it's like, it depends.
All the credit for good things that happen to you goes to Allah. All the blame for the bad thing goes to you. Make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, being God's a great gig, isn't it? To me, it's like football. Every time that someone catches the Hail Mary pass and makes a touchdown, you drop to one knee and that point up to the sky. When you fumble the pass, when you drop the pass, you don't see this. It's like if God made one of them happen, wasn't he kind of involved in both of them? So, yeah, okay. Great
That
game.
would be funny.
Sign me up.
That would be funny. You know what would happen to a football player that did that when he fumbled a pass? Wow.
Well, Colin Kaepernick couldn't even get on one knee, for God's sake. So, yeah, I think the finger might be a bit much.
Yep.
Is there a correlation between the Duggars, the Quiverful movement, and immoral activities? As someone that has done a 3-part series on the Quiverful movement, and this is a shameless plug, but you can find that on my channel, I can unequivocally say, yes, there's a lot of correlation between immoral activities and the Quiverful movement. But let's see what it says here. Josh Duggar, the oldest Duggar child, accused of sexually abusing 5 underage girls, 4 of them which were his sisters. He also admitted to adultery after his Ashley Madison account was leaked to the public. Yeah, I suspect this was probably true, and they buried it. Just like they bury a lot of impropriety in a lot of religions. This is not, just something that is unique to the Quiverful movement. This goes on in all churches. They just hide it. They feel it's a personal matter, and so should be dealt with personally and spiritually, not by legal matters. And then when it comes out, how many morals do you actually have if you allow this stuff just to go on and just sweep it under the rug? I'm just saying, this makes me angry. Doug Phillips, former high-profile Christian ministry leader with close ties to the Duggars, admitted to having an affair with his nanny. I think when high-powered males have an affair, often the nanny or the secretary or, targets number 1 and 2.
Mountains were put on the earth to prevent earthquakes. They don't do a very good job, though, since earthquakes in mountainous regions are quite common. For example, the largest earthquake ever recorded, 9.6 magnitude, occurred high in the Andes of Chile in 1960 and killed as many as 6,000 people. Actually, this one they might be right about. After all, if the mountain wasn't there, maybe the quake would have been even bigger. Maybe the areas that have no mountains are that way because God knew no quakes would come there, so they didn't need any mountains. Let's see you try to prove that isn't so.
77% of Americans believe in angels and demons. 51% don't believe in the Big Bang Theory. 42% believe in creationism. 31% don't believe that humans have evolved. 37% think climate change is a hoax. And 25% think the sun revolves around Earth.
Oh no. I keep just, ugh.
I think angels have become very commonplace in, people don't really have a strong knowledge of what angels are. There are a lot of people who have the misconception that angels are what people turn into when they die.
Yeah, well, and it is kind of one of those generic things that everybody just kind of accepts in America. Not everybody, but that idea that, like, Americans are steeped in this kind of culture, it's very true that we kind of have this very strong sense of it's all going to work out, and, like, you know, that kind of general fate sort of thing. And I remember as a kid, when I was starting to deconvert around like age 19, I was really thinking about, well, what do I know about my faith? And a lot of things that started to kind of back it up were the ideas that I had been steeped in from like movies and popular music and everything. They all kind of have this idea of things happening after you die, or everything happening for a reason, or a sense of fate and stuff. And so a lot of popular culture, at least in America, really parrots that idea. And so it seemed to all fit together to me. And so that was one of the first things that I really started to question when I came back to America from India, and I started to kind of like question my religion, was that, like, why have I been told this, but like everything around me is confirming it? So I had to kind of think outside of that box, and that made it a little bit more difficult. So
what do you think about 51% not trusting the Big Bang Theory, 42% believing in creationism? I think a lot of this comes from the fact that if you grow up learning about a divine creator first, it's a lot harder to incorporate these ideas into what you believe and what you know later on, at least from what I have experienced talking with others.
Yeah, and like, it's a big thing to wrap your head around on its own. So if whatever you start with, it's kind of hard to restructure your whole worldview, because it really informs a lot of different things. And so there's a lot of different things holding that belief up. But also, like, all of these things have to do with things that we can find out within science, most of them. Creationism and the Big Bang Theory, climate change, sun revolving around the earth. So to me, that is all about science communication. And going through my bachelor's in a science, I was really struck with the fact that, like, most of what I learned at the bachelor's level wasn't able to just be like picked up and understood by the average person. You had to have the training to be able to understand what you're reading and understand the terminology and the structure of the paper and all of that. So if a scientific article comes out, it has to be within the profession that you have studied, and it has to it only has to be like able to be picked up and read by somebody within that type of field. So if you're in the psychology field, but you read like a physics paper, you're not privy to that language that they're speaking in that paper. So it's not really accessible. And that was really concerning. And even to just access the paper, to read those, even if you don't have the knowledge of how to decode it, just accessing it, you have to have a membership to a university, or you have to pay a membership to a scientific journal. And so there's a big like gatekeeping within the scientific community to just access the information that they have. I'm not sure why they do that, why they don't have like a version of what they're doing that's more accessible and more in layman's terms. Because the problem is, anytime something comes out in the media, the way it's portrayed in media, it's always just really misconstrued, and scientists themselves are performing science, and they can't always be science communicators. But that's why people like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson and, you know, other Lawrence Krauss and, you know, people that either do science and communicate science, or they just communicate science, they're very valuable to the field because they make it accessible. And they make it accessible to the general public, which is a really big problem in the science community, that's not the case. So to this point, it makes complete sense to me that a lot of people have very strong opinions against this stuff because they've become skeptical of this thing that hides itself behind that gate. And so it's very unfortunate, but people are working very hard to communicate science and make it more accessible. It just isn't happening fast enough.
That idea that there's a misconception on what a scientific theory is, or versus just like the common theory, which is just kind of, it's just my somewhat educated guess, but a scientific theory is much more well educated and understood, and
it has a lot more evidence to back it up.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a hypothesis.
It's a working model, generally speaking.
Yeah. Well, and to stay a scientific theory, it has to be tested by the scientific method and come out to be valid still. So things like the theory of evolution or the theory of gravity, they're tested over and over and over again. And unfortunately, us even saying this is only accessible to people who will watch this type of content. Most of the time, people that are really affected by the lack of this knowledge that a scientific theory is not a hypothesis, they won't really have access to kind of content like that. So that's another issue, is that within the atheist community and like science advocacy community, we all understand this, but we haven't really done that great of a job of communicating that to people that storm the Capitol, stuff like that.
Atheist Edge. Walking the edge of what some consider offensive. But your feelings don't matter here. Only facts. Edgy commentary on the dangers of doctrine, the foibles of faith, the bullshit of belief, the stupidity of superstition, and the idiocy of indoctrination.
This is, gosh damn. Let's get through all this Quran bullshit. No wonder you didn't want to do your assignment. This is boring. We love talking about what we know, not what we don't know.
With razor-sharp wit, curiosity, and critical thought, we take an unblinking look at today's religions. We are Atheist Edge.